ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजना सहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी निति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देश तारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासदि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा। So welcome everyone. We are discussing from Srimad Bhagvatam, Canto 2. So we have completed, I think, till verse number 34. We'll continue from verse number 35. So this is the 5th chapter going on, the cause of all causes. And in the beginning of this chapter, we saw how sorry, Narad Muni approaches Brahmaji and he asks few of his questions. He tells that, I think you are the supreme because you are independent. You are doing everything on your own. You are not taking help from anyone. And you are creating, maintaining, and destroying by your own strength. And there is one doubt I have. Why are you doing tapasya? Yat tapasu samahitam. Sabhavan acharat ghoram. You are doing intense tapasya. Why? That creates doubt. So please tell me the details. Please answer my questions. Please remove my doubt. So then Brahmaji says, "Oh Narada, actually I'm just recreating what is already created by the Lord. And people who are bewildered by Maya, vivamohita vikattante mam vadanti moham iti durdhya." So those who are bewildered, they think that I am creating because they have lost their intelligence. They are covered. Their intelligence is covered by Maya. And then he starts answering the questions of Narad Muni. So he answered various questions. So Narad Muni had asked about the creation and the creator, matter, spirit, and controller of both. So he is describing various things. And he had asked about, in the 5th verse, I think, or 2nd verse, I think, yes. Yad rupam yad adhishthanam yad srishtam idam prabho yad samstham param yadcha yad tat tattvam vad tattvataha. So in response to this question, Narad Muni starts describing how Vasudev is the Vasudev is the shelter of this universe, and whatever we see in this universe, it is coming from Vasudev only. Dravya kala cha karmasya sabhavo jiva evacha Vasudevo paro anyo nachanyo artho asti tattvataha paro brahman nachanyo artho asti tattvataha. And then he describes the whole process of creation. So sarga means primary creation and visarga means secondary creation. So the 2nd canto basically describes sarga, 2nd and 3rd. And 3rd canto also describes partly visarga, and 4th canto also, 3rd and 4th canto describes visarga, 5th canto describes sthana, then 6th is poshana. That's how it continues. So in the last section which we discussed, Karana Srishti and Karya Srishti was being described. Anyone remembers what is Karana Srishti and what is Karya Srishti? So Karana Srishti means the process of creation starting from Mahavishnu glancing on Dravya or Prakriti and ends in creation of the 23 elements. That is called as Karana Srishti. And the Karya Srishti is after the elements are created. So all these elements, they are lying separately because there is nobody to bind them together. So these devatas, the sense devatas, they pray to the Lord, and then Lord sends his Vibhrat Shakti, and all these elements are put together and it forms a golden shell, the universe. And in that universe, so this, after this universe is formed, it lies down inactive for 1,000 years. Then Mahavishnu expands as Garbhodakshay Vishnu and enters each and every universe. And then he lies down, he fills half of the universe with his sweat that forms Garbhodak ocean, lies down on the bed of Ananta Shesha, then a lotus comes out of the navel, Brahmaji is born. So all this is Karya Srishti. Okay, so we discussed till verse number 34, and this 35th is a very, very important verse, because this verse forms the foundation of the next chapter, which is entitled Purusha Sukta Confirmed. So we'll recite this 35th verse once again. Saeva Purushas Tasmat Andam Nirvidya Nirgataha Bhavakshaha Sahasranana Shirshavan. Translation.
The Lord Vishnu, although lying in the causal ocean, came out of it and dividing himself as Hiranyagarbha, he entered into each universe and assumed the Virat Rupa with thousands of legs, arms, mouths, heads, etc.
Okay, so now that Virat Purusha, that Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Sa Eva Purushas Tasma, that Garbhodakshay Vishnu, what he did, Andam Nirbhidya, he entered this universal shell, Andam Nirbhidya Nirgataha. And so this is a metaphorical way of telling that Lord is, transcendental to material nature. Andam Nirbhidya Nirgataha. He entered and he came out, So that is a literal meaning of this. Andam Nirbhidya and Nirgataha. So if you see the word-to-word translation, Nirgataha means he came out. So he entered and came out. What does it mean? That means although he entered, he is not affected by the material creation. He is aloof of the material creation. So just like the Lord Mahavishnu never comes in touch with material universe, he is transcendental. He's just glancing, and this glance is also Lord Shiva. And then he expanded into this Virat Rupa. So this is a very, very important verse, because the description of Virat Rupa is starting now. And next chapter is entitled Purush Sukta Confirmed. So one may wonder, we are discussing universal creation, and so what is the point of mentioning Purush Sukta Confirmed? What is that which is being confirmed here? Because for us it doesn't matter. Purush Sukta confirm hua nahi hua, apne ko kya farak padne wala hai? But it has a very, very important significance, because traditionally the followers of Shankaracharya, They were the first to comment on the scriptures. Okay. And especially they commented on Vedanta Sutras. And they stated that only Shrutis are valid and Smritis are not so valid. You know, what is Shruti? What is Smriti? The basic understanding before we go ahead.
Shruti are the direct words of the Lord, and Smritis are the compositions, Puranas.
Okay. Anything else? Okay.
Smritis
So,
are based on hearing from the previous acharyas. Like Smritis are shastras were heard through disciplic successions and composed. They are Smriti shastras.
yes. So Shruti means they are direct words of Krishna, of the Lord, as heard by the sages. Just like all the Vedas, Upanishads, they are called as Shruti Puranas. Shruti Shastras, not Purana, Shruti Shastras. And Smriti Shastras means those words of the Lord which are heard by the sages, and then they are presented according to the understanding of the audience, so that people can understand. And therefore, the same knowledge which is given by the Lord, it is presented in the form of stories which are mentioned in Puran, Mahabharat, Itihas. So these are called Smriti. So Shankaracharya and all the followers, they said Shrutis, they are the best. They are the valid literatures, and Smritis are not so valid. Why? Why they did so? Because, you know, this is a very, very important understanding. Why Shankaracharya accepted Shruti Shastras and rejected Smriti Shastras? Because Smritis, they are very direct in their language. You cannot, misinterpret Smriti Shastra. They are so direct. And very clearly, Smriti Shastras, they explain that Lord has a form. He has his abode. He has his pastimes. You know, name, form, pastimes of the Lord, they are very clearly described in Smriti Shastras. There is no scope of interpretation. Interpretation is required only when the things are not so sure, not so clear. An example is given, Gangayam Ghoshpalli, village in the Ganga. So this requires interpretation. How can the village be in the Ganga? That means there is a village on the bank of Ganga. So these words, they require interpretation. But if the things are very clear and still you are interpreting, that is not good. So Smriti Shastras, they are very clear. And if the followers of Shankaracharya, they accept Smriti Shastras, that means they would be forced to believe that Lord has a form. Because Lord's name, form, pastimes, they are very clearly described in the Smriti Puranas. So Shankaracharya and all the followers, they first said that Smriti Shastras are not very important. Shrutis are topmost praman. And even in the Shrutis, they chose only few Upanishads, like Chandogya Upanishad, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, and from which they constantly quote. Why there are 108 Upanishads, but they chose only 10 out of the 108. And they said these are the topmost scriptures. Who decided? They decided. Because they were the authority. हम बोल रहे हैं कि ये 10 हैं सबसे बेस्ट. कौन क्यों हम बोल रहे हैं ना? No, we are the best. We are the first one. So therefore, whatever they said, it became line on the stone. They were the first people to comment. And whatever philosophy they wanted to establish, they established based on these Upanishads. आप लोग सोच रहे होंगे भाई ये पुरुष सूक्त से शंकराचार्य तक कैसे पहुंच गए, थोड़ा वेट करिए, अभी आ जाएगा वो, So Now, Shankaracharya and all these followers, they started using Shruti Shastras, and that also only few Shruti Shastras, which can be easily misinterpreted. Actually, it is not that Upanishads, they have impersonal teachings, but the language of the Upanishads allow a person to have an alternate interpretation. That's how the language of the Upanishads are. And because Shankaracharya and his followers were the first to interpret, so taking advantage of this, what they did? They interpreted all of them in the impersonal way. And then, they degenerated all these scriptures, and they told that any scripture which describes the personal philosophy of the Lord, it is a lower scripture. And any scripture which describes the Lord as an impersonal, that is a higher level of scripture. So Mayavadis, they say that there are two types of scriptures: Vyavaharik scriptures and Paramarthik scriptures. Vyavaharik means scriptures related to this world, where is variety. This world has a variety. Paramarthik literature means the scriptures related to the absolute truth, and there it is oneness. So Paramarthik, they said Paramarthik literatures are the higher literatures. Actually, most of the scriptures, they talk about the personal form of the Lord. But Mayavadis, to reconcile their philosophy, they said, array scriptures are of two levels. There are lower level of scriptures and higher level of scriptures. So lower level of scriptures means Vyavaharik literatures are lower and Paramarthik are higher. Who said? They said, because they were the boss. तो हम बोल रहे हैं कि ये बड़े higher literature है, मानना ही पड़ेगा. And then they said there are some Mahavakyas and there are some Laghu Vakya. What is a Mahavakya? Any Vakya which can be misinterpreted to prove the impersonal philosophy, that is a Mahavakya. But they are very clear. मतलब जो भी बोल के आप establish कर दें कि भाई Lord is impersonal, that is a great thing. Tattvamasi, Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, all Mahavakya. So then subsequently the Vaishnavacharyas came and then they started establishing the personal Siddhanta. And these now come, it is important thing. Now these Vaishnavacharyas, they came, they started writing commentary on Puran. They also wrote commentary on Shruti scriptures and they wrote commentary on the Puranas. This principle of Vishishta Advaitavad, established by Ramanujacharya, it is based mainly on Shruti scriptures and Vedanta sutras. And then our Vaishnava Acharyas came, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Rupa Goswami. What they had to do is, they had to establish that the personal form of the Lord is based on Shruti scriptures. It is not that, personal form is mentioned only in Smriti and not in Shruti. So first thing is, they had to establish that the personal form of the Lord is there in Shruti Shastras. Second thing they had to do is, they had to establish the supremacy of Smriti Shastra. ये दो चीज करना है उनको. First, personal form of the Lord is mentioned in Shrutis, and Smritis are no less. So they had to establish that Smritis, they are also equal to Shruti Puranas. So now, all these acharyas, they established the supremacy of Shruti scriptures by quoting from, they established the supremacy of Smriti scriptures by quoting from Shruti scriptures. कि ये श्रुति स्क्रिप्चर्स में भी यही दिया है, स्मृति में भी यही दिया है. This is a similarity. Can you see? You are saying that Smriti Shastras are lower, Shruti Shastras are higher. It is not the case. Whatever is there in Shruti Shastras, that is also there in Smriti Shastra. And once the Smriti Shastras are established on an equal footing as Shruti, then for the devotees, they described elaborately on the Smriti Shastras. So if you see Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu, Rupa Goswami has quoted exclusively from Bhagavatam and Puranas. Not one quote is there from Upanishads, because all quotes are there from Bhagavatam and Puranas. Because they established, first of all, they established that Shrutis and Smritis, they are equal. It is not that Shruti is higher and Smriti is lower. That was the job of, previous Vaishnava Acharyas. So now we'll see the connection of Purushukta. Abhi tak humne kya dekha? Mayavadis, how they started? They started telling that Shrutis are higher, Smritis are lower. They divided the scriptures into higher and lower scriptures. And because they were the first one, so they said, and everybody has to accept. Then when the Vaishnava Acharyas came, they had two jobs. First, personal form of the Lord is mentioned in Shruti also. And Shruti and Smriti, they are equal. So how they did that? They started finding out various quotations in the Smritis, and they told that, look, Smritis also say that, Shrutis also say the same thing. So among the Shrutis, Rig Veda, there are four Vedas: Samved, Yajurved, Atharvaved, Rigved. So it is said that Rig Veda is one of the earliest of all the Vedas. And in Rig Veda, there is a most common hymn, which is called as Purush Sukta. So now all of you can open your Subodhini, and in that Subodhini, you can go to page number 206 or उसके आसपास कहीं तो रहेगा. वहां पे there is a fifth topic, Purush Sukta confirmed in Bhagavatam. Okay, so everybody is there on the page. Okay, so in this it is written Purush Sukta, which is most commonly used Vedic hymn, is an important part of Rig Veda. It is recited in several Vedic rituals and ceremonies. It is often used during the worship or installation of the deity of Vishnu or Narayan temples, in fire ceremonies, during the recitation of Sanskrit literature, or for one's meditation. Purush Sukta is also found in other scriptures such as Yajurveda. So this Purush Sukta, it is chanted in Vishnu temple also, and it is chanted in Shiva temple also. The Shaivites, they also chant Purush Sukta, and the Vaishnavas, they also chant Purush Sukta, because the Purush Sukta, the first verse of Purush Sukta, as you can see in the Subodhini, Om Sahasra Shirasa Purusha Sahasraksha Sahasrapat Sabhomim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishtad Dashangulam. This is the Purush Sukta verse. So these verses, they don't mention who is that Purusha. Oh, Purusha hai kaun? Sahasra Shirsha Purusha. Oh, hai kaun Purusha? So therefore, Shaivites, they say this Purusha is Shivji. Vaishnavas, they say, no, this Purusha is Vishnu. So, in this chapter, from 36th verse onwards, it is 35th verse onwards, this is very clearly established. Who is this Purusha? Kaun hai wo Purusha? Who is that Purusha?
Karandakshay Vishnu.
No. Who is that Purusha who entered this universe?
Garbhodakshay Vishnu.
Garbhodakshay Vishnu. So that's why this next chapter is entitled as Purush Sukta Confirmed. Kya confirm hua? वो जो पुरुष है, it's not Shivaji. That Purusha is Garbhodakshay Vishnu. You know? So you can see in the Subodhini. Srila Prabhupada titles the 6th chapter of the 2nd canto as Purush Sukta Confirmed because the verses of this chapter are similar to verses of the Purush Sukta. Furthermore, the Bhagavatam confirms that the Purusha mentioned in the Purush Sukta is Garbhodakshay Vishnu. That is why it is significant. Furthermore, it proves the authenticity of Bhagavatam, generally known as a Smriti Shastra, as it collates with references from the Shruti texts. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary on this chapter has highlighted the similarity of these verses. So this is the table which very nicely describes what is a Purush Sukta verse and how Bhagavatam verse very closely relates to this Purush Sukta verse. Okay, so I'll just start the slide show presented by Balram Shakti Prabhu. In that he has, very nicely described these things side by side. Just 1 minute. Okay. Okay. So now you are seeing this 35th verse. Saeva Purushas Tasmad Andam Nirbhidya Nirgataha Sahasroru Angri Bahuaksha Sahasranana Shirshavan. Tasmad, therefore, that Purusha, Saeva Purusha, pierced Andam Nirbhidya, pierced the universe and came out, went outside, Nirgataha. So that means it is a metaphorical way of telling that Lord is not affected by this entrance. He is not, materially entangled. And there he resides with the 1,000 legs, feet, arms. Sahasra Uru Angru Bahu Angri Bahu Akshaha. So now this is the Purush Sukta verse. As you can see in the Subodhini also, it is the same thing given there also. Sahasra Shirsa Purushaha, Sahasrakshaha, Sahasrapat, Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva, Atyatishtat Dash Angulam. Atyatishtat Dash Angulam means he extends beyond the universe by 10 fingers. So what does it mean, 10 fingers? मतलब universe से 10 उंगली बड़े ऐसा है क्या? So it means that he is beyond, he is not affected by this material universe. That's a poetic way of telling this. Andam Atyatishtat Dashangulam. Nirgata Andam Nirbhidya Nirgataha. Okay, next verse. We will recite this. Yasya havaya vair lokan.
Yasya
Lokan.
Kalpayanti manishinaha.
Kalpayanti manishinaha.
Tyadiviravadha adha sapta. Saptordhvam jaghanadibihi.
Great philosophers imagine that the complete planetary systems in the universe are displays of different upper and lower limbs of the universal body of the Lord.
Okay. So in this universe, iha, within this universe, the wise people, kalpayanti manishinha. So again, this universal form which is mentioned, it is a imagination of the wise people. The form is not an imagination. The 14 planetary systems, they are reality, they are not an imaginary things. But to imagine these various planetary systems as the limbs of the Lord, that is an imagination. So kalpayanti manishina, the wise imagine that these lokas, the planets, are avayavai. Avayava means limbs. And then how these limbs are distributed? Katyadibhir adha sapta, the buttocks and the below, they are the lower planetary systems, and the hips and above, they are the upper planetary systems, starting from the earth planet. So Prabhupada writes about Kalpayanti. Kalpayanti is significant. Virat Rupa is an imagination of the speculative philosophers who are unable to adjust to the eternal two-handed form of Lord Krishna. Although the universal form as imagined by the great philosophers is one of the features of the Lord, it is more or less imaginary. Okay, next verse. Purushasya mukham brahma. Purushasya mukham brahma. Shatrametasya bahavaha. Urvor vaishyo bhagavataha. Adhyam shudro vyajayata.
The Brahmanas represents his mouth, the Kshatriyas his arms, the Vaisyas his thighs, and the Shudras are born of his legs.
So the Purushasya mukham brahma. So Brahmanas, they arose from the Purusha's head. Kshatram, the Vaishyas, from the arms. Urvor, from the thighs, Vaishyas. And Padbhyam, from the Shudras. From the feet came the Shudras. So, and you can see down in this, there is a Purush Sukta verse. So, which line in this Purush Sukta verse matches with the first line, Purushasya mukham brahma?
First line.
First line, but Brahmano asya mukham asid. Then, Shatram etasya bahavaha, bahu rajanya kritaha. Very, very similar. It is very simple to correlate these two verses. And Uru tadasya advaishya padbhyam shudro ajayata. Very similar verses, So it is very clearly confirmed that this Purusha is Garbhodakshai Vishnu and not anyone else. So Prabhupada in the purport of this verse emphasizes on this Varnashram system. The intelligent class, therefore, must speak on behalf of the body, as well as accept foodstuffs to satisfy the hunger of the body. Hunger of the Lord is to accept the fruits of sacrifice. The Brahmanas must be very expert in performing such sacrifices. And then to speak for the Lord means to glorify the Lord. Then Brahmanas are required to know the Vedas. So Prabhupada writes something about, the four Varnas, the duty of the four Varnas. Okay, next verse. Bhurloka kalpita padhyam. Any questions? Anybody have?
Prabhu, but the last verse where it is not there.
Sorry?
Where we compared the Purusha Shukta verse.
Yeah.
Last we compared. So is it mentioned anywhere in Subodhini or somewhere? We don't see that.
No. In Subodhini, not all the verses are mentioned.
Okay.
Only few are mentioned because Subodhini, Gaurang Darshan Prabhu has made. So he has put few verses. And this is a presentation made by Balram Shakti Prabhu. So he has tried to put many more verses.
Okay. Thank you.
Purloka kalpita padbhyam. Varlokasya nabhitaha. Hridaswara loka urasa. Paraloko Mahatmanah.
The lower planetary system up to the limit of the earthly stratum are said to be situated in his legs. The middle planetary system, beginning from Bhurvaloka, are situated in his navel, and the still higher planetary system occupied by the demigods and highly cultured sages and saints are situated in the chest of the Supreme Lord. Hare Krishna.
So the further description is given. Bhurloka, from Patala to earth, they are feet to hip. You know, Bhurloka Kalpita, Kalpana. This is all Kalpana going on. You know, this is all imagination. So I had shown the picture also. I'll just show that slide again. You know how this universal form is presented in the script, in the pictorial form. So you can see this. You know, so this is a pictorial presentation of these various things. Bhurlokaha kalpitah padbhyam. So yeah, so lower planetary systems up to the limit of earth, they are considered situated in his legs. Then middle, beginning from Bhuvarloka, are situated in his navel. And the higher planetary systems, they are situated in the chest. So what is this Bhuvarloka? So Bhuvarloka means it is called as Antariksha. So Antariksha means above the Bhumandal and below the Swarga Loka, there is a space where all the yakshas and the ghostly beings they reside. That is called as Bhuvar Loka. Fifth canto mein detailment description is there. Okay, so next verse. Grivayam jana loko asya tapoloka stanadvayat Murdha bhi satyalokastu Brahmalokaha sanatanaha.
From the forefront of the chest up to the neck of the universal form of the Lord are situated the planetary systems named Janalok and Tapalok, whereas Satyalok, the topmost planetary system, is situated on the head of the form. The spiritual planets, however, are eternal.
So Grivayam, Griva means in the neck, Janaloka resides, and Tapaloka in the breasts, Satyaloka on the head, Murdabhi Satyalokaha. And very important and interesting piece of information is given. Above Satyaloka is what? Brahmaloka. So basically Satyaloka and Brahmaloka, it is same, right? But here it is mentioned above this is Brahmaloka. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that this Brahmaloka is a Vaikuntha planet. This is not the place of Brahmaji, because Brahmaji resides in Satyaloka. So there are 3 Vaikunthas in the material universe. One is in the Shvetadvipa. Second is above Brahmalok, Satyalok. This is what is mentioned here. Brahmalokaha Sanatanaha. And the third is on the Lokalok mountain. It will come in the 5th canto. Okay. So Prabhupada focuses on this word Sanatan. This very idea of eternity is expressed in this verse, where it is said that, and it is expressed in Bhagavad Gita 8.20, which is said that beyond the material creation is a spiritual sky where everything is eternal. Which verse is this? Parastasmatu bhavonyo, I think. Vyakto vyakta sanatanaha. So that is what Prabhupada is quoting here. Oh, I just put sometimes Satyaloka, the planet in which Brahma resides, is also called as Brahmaloka. But the Brahmaloka mentioned here is not the same as Satyaloka. This Brahmaloka is eternal, whereas Satyaloka is not eternal. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, this Brahmaloka is the abode of Brahman or the Supreme Lord. In the spiritual sky, all the planets are as good as Lord himself. Okay, so Prabhupada describes something, and then he says that, oh, because of poor fund of knowledge, people they can't understand this. They mistake the conditions of this world, to be equivalent to the spiritual world. Avajananti mama mudha. Prabhupada quotes that verse here also. Okay, next verse. Tatkatyam chatalam kliptam.
Tatpatyam chatalam
Pratilam kritam
Urubhyam vitalam vibhuho.
Urubhyam vitalam
Janubhyam sutalam shuddham.
Janubhyam sutalam
Gangabhyam tutalaatalam.
Gangabhyam
Talatalam.
Mahatalam tu gulfabhyam.
Mahatalatam
Prabadabhyam rasatalam.
Prabhadabhyam rasasalam.
Patalam padatalata.
Padatalata.
Lokamaya puman.
My dear son Narada, know from me that there are 7 lower planetary systems out of the 14. The first planetary system, known as Atala, is situated on the waist. The second, Vitala, is situated on thighs. The third, Sutala, on the knees. The fourth, Talatal, on the shanks. The fifth, Mahatal, on the ankles. The sixth, Rasatal, on the upper portion of the feet. And the seventh, Patal, on the soles of the feet. Thus, the Virat from the Lord is full of planetary systems.
That's how the entire Virat Purusha is depicted in the various planetary systems. And then Prabhupada writes, all these planetary systems are scattered over the complete universe, which occupies an area of 2 billion times 2 billion square miles. The modern astronauts can travel only a few thousand miles away from the Earth. So Prabhupada is giving the dimension of the entire universe. So the whole universe expands in this way. 2 billion times 2 billion square miles. The modern astronauts can travel only a few thousand miles away from the Earth, and therefore their attempt to travel in the sky is something like child's play on the shore of an expansive ocean. Okay, so that's how Prabhupada describes that no one can actually cross this universe. No one can understand the limits of the universe. What to speak of crossing this universe and going to the spiritual world? Only a devotee can go to the spiritual. Nobody else can go to the spiritual world. Okay, the last verse. Bhurlokah kalpitah padbhyam. Bhuvarloko asyanabhitah. Varalokah kalpito murdhna. Iti va loka kalpana.
Others may divide the whole planetary system into 3 divisions, namely the lower planetary system on the legs, upper to the earth, the middle planetary system on the navel, and the upper planetary system, Sarloka, from the chest, the head of the Supreme Personality. Hare Krishna.
So now Shukadeva Goswami's Brahmaji is summarizing, whatever he described in this last verse. Bhurloka, it is an imagination. Earth and lower, they are considered to be feet. And Bhurloka is the navel, and Swargaloka is the head. This is how others imagine the planets on the universal form. So that is the chapter entitled The Cause of All Causes. Okay, so now the next chapter is Purush Sukta Confirmed. So now in this chapter, the 6th question of Narad Muni is described. Yatcha, Param Yatcha, Yad Rupam, Yadadishthanam, Yadasrishtam, Idam Prabhu, Yatcha, last is Yatcha, Param Yatcha. So Yatcha means what is this universe composed of? So that is being described now in the next chapter. Okay, so Brahmaji, he is continuing the description. So in the first 16 verses, it is described that actually Lord is the material and effective cause of this universe. So material cause means he provides the ingredients, and he is also the cause which creates this universe, provides the ingredients, and then also mixes the ingredients together to create this universe, effective cause. Okay, so that's how it will be further described in this chapter. Okay, so Brahmaji is speaking the first verse. Brahma uvacha Champanirmukham Kshetram Chandasam Saptadhatavaha Bhavya Kavyamritananam Jihva Sarvarasasya Cha.
The Lord Brahma said, the mouth of the Virat Purusha, the universal form of the Lord, is the generating center of the voice, and the controlling deity is fire. His skin and 6 other layers are the generating centers of the Vedic hand, and his tongue is the productive center of the different foodstuff and the delicacies for offering to the demigods. The forefathers, the demigod, the forefathers, and the general masses to the public, people.
Okay. So here, as you can see in your Subodhini, there is a simple equation which is described. How various things are created in this universe. How Garbhodaksha Vishnu provides all the ingredients of the universe. So you can see there are 2 equations given. Lord's subtle sense organ creates the sense objects and the elements, and the Lord's gross sense organ creates sense devatas and the subtle sense organs of the Virata Rupa and the Jivas. So as you can see in this picture, this slide also. So the Lord's gross sense organ creates sense objects and elements. So sense object means form, touch, taste, what is that? Form, touch, taste, smell, and sound. These are called as sense objects or tanmatras. And the 5 elements means earth, water, fire, air, ether. Okay. So these 2 things, they come from the Lord's subtle sense organs. So for example, the Lord's subtle sense organ is called as Jihva. So in the Bhagavad Gita verse, there is a 15th chapter, there is a verse. Shrotram, Chakshu, Sparshanam cha, Rasanam, Ghranam evacha, Adhishthaya, Manashayam, Vishayan upasevate. So all these things, they are subtle sense organs. They are not gross sense organs. Shrotra means the subtle ear. What is gross ear? Gross ear is called as karna. As you can see in this slide, the gross ear which we can see, that is called as karna. And the subtle ear which we cannot see, but it carries the vibration from the gross ear to the mind. that is called as subtle organ, and that is called as Shrotra. Shrotram. Then Chakshu. Akshini is the gross eye which we can see. But the stimulus is carried from the gross eye to the mind through subtle eye. That subtle eye is called as Chakshu. So therefore, we say
Chakshu.
so. When we say Chakshudan dilo jai janme janme prabhu se. So Chakshu is not a gross eye, right? Because the gross eye already we have. But Chakshu is that subtle eye by which our mind can perceive the spiritual senses, spiritual form. So those subtle sense organs, they come from the Lord's gross sense organ. The subtle sense organ of the Virat Rupa and subtle sense organ of the Jiva, both. So, in this first verse, Vacham Vahane Mukham Kshetram, from the mouth of the Lord, Mukha, the speech organ, and Agni in the universal form came. So, सबसे पहले Lord's gross organ is mouth. Okay. So from the Lord's gross organ, three things come. The sense devata of that organ, then the subtle sense organ of the Virat Rupa, and the subtle sense organ of the Jiva. They all come from the Lord's gross sense organ. So in this first verse, it is described how the mouth of the Virat Purusha gives rise to Agni, the speech, and the speech organ. Then from the Chandasam Saptadhatavaha, from his 7 dhatus arose 7 Vedic meters. From the Lord's tongue arose the remnants of offerings to the devatas, Havya and Kavya. As the word says, Havya, Kavya, Amrita, Annanam. From the Lord's tongue arose the remnants of offering to devatas. So it may look little confusing. Just we understand the basic principle of the creation. The details are various, which may not be easily conceivable. How these things they come from this, but this is the sequence which is being described. And the acharyas, they have very nicely analyzed the entire thing, and they have come up to these 2 equations. The Lord's gross sense organ gives rise to sense devatas, and the subtle sense organ of the Virat Rupa and the Jiva. And the Lord's subtle sense organ gives rise to sense objects and the elements. Okay. Second verse, translation. We can read the translation. That's how it goes on. Every verse it is the same. From the first verse to the 16th verse, to 12th verse. It's all the table, we can see in the Subodhini, there is a table which is given. That is what is described. We can keep reading the translations of these verses.
His 2 nostrils.
Okay. His 2 nostrils are the generating centers of our breathing and of all other ears. His smelling powers generate the Ashwin Kumar demigods and all kinds of medicinal herbs. And his breathing energies produce different kinds of fragrance. Continue, Karna.
Yes, continue, Mataji, till 12 verses.
His eyes are the generating centers of all kinds of forms, and they glitter and illuminate. His eyeballs are like the sun and the heavenly planets. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for all the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound. His body surface is the breeding ground for the active principles of everything and for all kinds of auspicious opportunities. His skin, like the moving ear, is a generating center for all kinds of sense of touch and is a place for performing all kinds of sacrifice. The hairs on his body are the cause of all vegetation, particularly of those trees which are required as ingredients for sacrifice. The hairs on his head and face are reservoirs for the clouds, and his nails are the breeding ground of electricity, stones, and iron ores. The Lord's arms are the productive fields for the great demigods and other leaders of the living entities who protect the general mass. Thus, the forward steps of the Lord are the shelter for the upper, lower, and heavenly planets, as well as for that we need. His lotus feet serve as protection from all kinds of fear. From the Lord's genitals originate water, semen, generatives, rains, and procreators. These genitals are the cause of pleasures that counteracts the distress of begetting. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, hell, etc. The back of the Lord is a place for all kinds of frustration and ignorance, as well as for immortality. From his veins flow the great rivers and rivulets, and on his bones are stacked the great mountains. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of subtle material bodies of living beings. Thus, it is known by the intelligent class of men. Also, the consciousness of that great personality is the abode of religious principles, mine, yours, and those of the four bachelors, Sanak, Sanatan, Sanatkumar, and Sanatan. That consciousness is also the abode of truth and transcendental knowledge.
Hari Bol.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Krishna, Hari
So in this chapter, basically it is described whatever is seen in this creation, the Lord is both the material and the efficient cause. So just to understand what is a material and efficient cause, we take an example of a pot. Okay, so what is the cause of a pot? You know, if you are asked, what is the cause of a pot? You know, clay pot. What is the cause? तो क्या क्या बोल सकते हैं? What all things can be said?
Pot maker.
Okay, the pot maker is the cause. Okay, what else?
Stick which is used by pot maker to
Okay,
rotate that.
The stick which is used by the pot maker, that is also the cause of a pot. What else?
Clay, why that pot?
The clay is also the cause of a pot. What else?
Water which is added to making that.
Okay, is the water which is added is also the cause. What else?
The wheel.
Potter's wheel is also the cause of the pot. Okay, so these are the various causes of pot. So to analyze and classify these various causes, there are three things which are given: Upadana Karan, Nimitta Karan, and Sahakarya Karan. Okay, so Upadana Karan means the material cause. So what is the material cause? इसमें से जो भी बोले हैं, what is the material cause? The
soil.
The soil, the clay is a material cause. Okay, or Upadana Karan. The word used is Upadana Karan. And then what is the Nimitta cause? The effective cause. Nimitta kaun hai?
The potter.
The potter, you know. The potter is the Nimitta Karan or effective cause who is making that. And what is the Sahakarya Karan? The instrumental cause. That is
The wheel.
the wheel and the stick, right? So sometimes Sahakarya Karan and Upadan Karan, they are merged together. And therefore, it is now categorized into two categories instead of three. So first is Upadan Karan and Nimitta Karan. So Sahakarya and Upadan, they take it as one. So there are two causes, Upadan Karan and Nimitta Karan. Anywhere else we have heard this word Nimitta? In Bhagavad Gita, कहाँ सुने हम word Nimitta?
निमित्त मात्र
Nimitta matra bhava sabhya
सव्यसाची, हाँ.
just become the instrument, O Arjun. So that's how this chapter describes how Supreme Lord is both the Upadan Karan and the Nimitta Karan. He supplies the ingredients and he himself makes this universe also. So in this section which we just read, this describes how Lord supplies all the ingredients. You know, you may be thinking, Lord ka subtle organ or gross organ kya hai? You know, we have our gross and subtle senses, right? But the Lord, sab spiritually hai. In that spirituality also, in that absolute spiritual thing, there is also a differentiation. Although that gross and subtle is described, but that gross is also spiritual and subtle is also spiritual. You know, we have our subtle senses. Lord also has subtle senses, but Lord's subtle senses are also spiritual. Our subtle senses are material. You know, mind, intelligence, ego is material. But Lord's subtle senses is also spiritual and Lord gross senses are also spiritual. But still, there is a differentiation. And that's what we saw here. The Lord's subtle sense organ gives rise to tanmatras and the elements. Lord's gross sense organ gives rise to sense devatas and the subtle sense organ of the Virat Rupa and Jivas. Who is the Lord here? Who is the Lord here? Who is the Lord here? Garbhodakshay Vishnu. You know, so this Garbhodakshay Vishnu's limbs provides all the ingredients of the universe. Just like matter has a variety, it is gross and subtle matter. Spirit also has a variety. Gross spirit, subtle spirit, but it is also spirit. You know, so that's how all these things are described here. So the first verse, if we see, Vacham Vahner. So now the another question is, in the previous chapter we heard speech and fire comes from where?
इधर.
Previous chapter में कहाँ से आते हैं? अहंकार ना?
हाँ.
Ahankar gives rise to all these things, right? अब यहाँ पे क्या लिखा है? They arise from the mouth. वहां पे लिखा है अहंकार से, यहाँ पे लिख रहे हैं mouth से. How to understand this? Here it is said, from the mouth of the Lord arises speech and fire. In the previous chapter, we heard from the mouth of the Lord, from the ahankar, rajogun ke ahankar se speech, fire, all these things come. Tamoguna ahankar mein. How to understand this? You know, we have to understand that when scripture says something, it is not textual. There is context to it. the process mentioned in the previous chapter is right. But how that, ahankar gives rise to speech, fire, there is a different context given in this chapter. And I'll give an example. So there is something called as primary attribution and secondary attribution. So if Radha Giridhari temple has, guest house has, for example, 6 cars, okay? And these 6 cars, they belong to Radha Giridhari temple. And these 6 cars are given to 6 drivers. And they take care of these cars, and they, if the guest comes, they take the car and bring the guests and drop them down to their destinations. तो अगर वो एक guest आया, तो वो in charge क्या बोलेगा? If one of the drivers name is Lakshman, तो बोले क्या बोलेगा? वो लक्ष्मण का कार लेके जाओ. कार किसका है? Car belongs to temple, right? But what is said is, वो लक्ष्मण का कार लेके जाओ. So car does not belong to Lakshman. It is a secondary attribution given to that car. ये लक्ष्मण का कार है. And everyone understands that. कोई ऐसा बोलता नहीं है लक्ष्मण का कार क्यों बोल रहे हैं आप? Everybody understands that. It is a way of saying things. Radha Giridhari is the ultimate proprietor, and it is given to this person so that he can take care of it. Similarly, in scriptures, many places it is said that Lord Shiva is the creator. And there is no need to get confused about it. Brahma is the creator. Shiva is the destroyer. It is a secondary attribution given to them. Garbhodakshai Vishnu never gets involved in the creation directly. Radha Giridhari does not himself come and takes care of the car, right? The drivers take care of the car. Garbhodakshai Vishnu doesn't directly gets involved in the creation. Who gets involved? Brahma. And destruction, Shiva. In the 4th canto, there is a description where when the Sati, she burns herself in the fire, and Shiva is very, very angry. He sends Veerbhadra. Veerbhadra kills everyone, and Shiva is very angry. So all these devatas headed by Brahma, they go, and Brahma glorifies Lord Shiva as a supreme. If you read those verses, you'll be bewildered. Brahmaji is glorifying Shiva as the creator. So one should not get confused by these things. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes that although the speech and fire arise from material ahankar, right? Material ahankar se aa raha hai na? They are said to arise from the mouth and other parts of the Lord because they are the vibhutis of Lord's various limbs. They are vibhutis of Lord various limbs. So we have to be very clear about this understanding. वहां पे ऐसा बोल रहे हैं, इधर बोल रहे हैं mouth से आ रहा है, उधर बोलते हैं अहंकार से आता है. What is this happening? These are all various vibhutis of Lord's various limbs. So everything in the spiritual world has a counterpart in the material world. We have a material fire. That means there is a spiritual fire also. There is a material earth. There is a spiritual earth also, right? In spiritual world, everything is spiritual, na? वहां पे भी अर्थ है. कौन सा अर्थ है? Matter नहीं है, spirit है. Material fire, material earth, material air. These are all material. It is described in Bhagvatam in Vrindavan. The climate is always spring. There are no rainy seasons, no summer seasons, no winter seasons. Sacha Vindavan Gunair Vasanta Iva Lakshitaihi Yatraste Bhagavan Sakshat Saharamena Keshava. In the Vaikuntha, in Vrindavan, there is always Vasanta. So therefore, all the varieties, they come from spiritual world only. यहाँ पे जो भी है, spiritual world में it is there. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes that the speech, fire and all their expansion in the spiritual world are eternal, full of consciousness, since they are part of the spiritual pastimes. But their vibhutis in the material world, they are temporary. So in the spiritual world, everything is there. So from Lord's body, the matter also comes. Lord is spiritual, but Lord can create matter also. So that is the understanding given in this verse. Okay. Just give me 1 minute. There is a call coming again and again. Just give me 1 minute. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So that's how these descriptions are given. So Prabhupada describes in some of the purports whatever relevant things are there. So very important thing to understand, whenever Prabhupada is giving purports, he is not going into the technical explanation of all these things. If you read the purports of Prabhupada, Prabhupada doesn't go into all these from the Lord subtle sense organ, all these things are coming, and from gross sense organ, all these things are coming. So, even if somebody is thinking, ye kuch samajh nahi aa raha hai, kya chal raha hai, everything is going above, still we don't have to worry. The main thing is, the purpose of this entire description is from the Lord's body, all the material ingredients for this universe come. That is the ultimate understanding. Okay, so that should be very clear in the mind. भाई इसमें कौन सा किधर से आ गया, कुछ समझा ही नहीं, ये क्या बोल रहे हैं, सेंट्रल सेंस ऑर्गन से क्या आ रहा है, no problem. So we have to understand the basic principle that everything in this universe has come from the Garbhodakshai Vishnu's body, gross body and the subtle body. And one more thing is, Lord's gross body is also spiritual, Lord's subtle body is also spiritual. That is the basic understanding. There should be no confusion about it. And the details, there are n number of details of creation, and it is not so easy to understand. So therefore, if we are not able to grasp some of the things, don't worry about that. Because Prabhupada, he just takes the theme of each and every verse and he is giving the purports accordingly. Okay, so then in the 6th verse, we'll see the Prabhupada writes that Bahavo Lokapalanam Prayasha Shema Karmanam. The Lord's arms are the protective fields for the Devatas and the leaders of the living entities. So then Prabhupada takes that theme that everything in this material world is the vibhuti of the Lord. Yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam Srimad Urjitam evava. So we should always have this understanding, whatever we see in this world, everything is coming from the Lord only. There is no exception to this principle. Okay, so then after In the 11th verse, Prabhupada writes some things in the purport. The impersonal feature of the Lord is the abode of great oceans, and his belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. His heart is the abode of subtle material bodies. So this is a very, very interesting thing. His belly is the resting place for the materially annihilated living entities. So whenever living entities, when this material creation is destroyed, all the living entities again enter the belly of the Lord. That is what is described. The belly is the abode of for the materially annihilated living entities. That means when the living entities enter the body of the Lord at the end of the material universe, they are stripped of their subtle body and the gross body also. So all their material possessions, they are taken away from them. Somebody may say, wow, they are liberated, right? Liberation ho gaya na? Free from the gross body and the subtle body. That means liberation. But, it will be described in the 8th chapter. These living entities who are stripped of their gross and subtle body, they are the miserable one. Why? Because the desire to enjoy is there, but body is stripped off. Subtle body is also stripped off, gross body is also stripped off. So therefore he is miserable. It is like a person who has lost his, a very great treasure. So that's why it is described. The belly is a resting place for the materially annihilated living beings. So Prabhupada describes, after the whole life of Brahma, the entire universe gets destroyed, and then all these living entities enter the body of the Lord. There are 4 kinds of annihilation. Anyone knows? There are 4 kinds of annihilation which happens in the universe.
At the end of the day of Brahma and sorry.
Sorry?
Nitya Pralaya, Naimittik Pralaya,
Okay.
Atyantik Pralaya.
Last one is
Third one.
Nitya Naimittik.
Atyantik. Last is Atyantik. Third one is Prakritik. Okay. So Nitya Pralaya, Naimittik Pralaya, Prakritik Pralaya, and Atyantik Pralaya. Nitya Pralaya means some destruction which keeps happening every moment. Nitya. Naimittika Pralaya happens at the end of the day of Brahma. Brahma, when he sleeps, the lower Bhu and Bhuar Loka till Swarga Loka gets destroyed. Bhu, Bhuar, Swa. All these 3, they get destroyed. So that is called as Naimittika Pralaya. Okay. I hope there is no sound coming because there is lots of, sound is there in the temple. I hope it is not disturbing. Okay. Take care. So Naimittika Pralaya means which happens at the end of Brahma's day. When Bhu, Bhuva, Swarga, Loka, they are all merged in the waters of Garbhodaksha ocean. Garbhodak ocean. And then Prakritik Pralaya means at the end of the life of Brahma. When this entire universe gets destroyed, that is called as Prakritik Pralaya. So this, when this is mentioned, belly is the resting place for materially annihilated living entities. This happens in Naimittik Pralaya also and Prakritik Pralaya also. Naimittik Pralaya mein kahan jate hain? In the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. And Prakritik Pralaya mein kahan jate hain? In the body of Mahavishnu. And what is Atyantika Pralaya? When the living entity is living entity's false ego is destroyed, when he is liberated, when the entire material existence of Jiva is destroyed, that is called as Atyantika Pralaya. Okay. Okay, so now 13th verse. So somebody can read 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yes, Prabhuji.
Translation.
Sorry. Only translation, sir. Only translation.
Yes.
Beginning from me, Brahma, down to you and Bhava, Shiva, all the great sages who were born before you, the demigods, the demons, the nagas, the human beings, the birds, the beasts, as well as the reptiles, etc., and all phenomenal manifestation of universe, namely the planet, stars, asteroids, luminaries, lightning, thunder, and the inhabitant of the different planetary systems, namely the Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yaksha, Rathas, then Bhutaganas, Urgas, Pasus, Pitas, Siddhas, Vidyadharas, Charanas, and all other different varieties of living entities, including the birds, beasts, trees, everything that we are all covered by the universal form of the Lord at all time, namely past, present, and future. Although he is transcendental to all of them, eternally existing in a form not exceeding 9 inches. Hare Krishna. What is this 9 inches?
Okay, so that's how Brahmaji is describing that everyone in this universe, whatever living entities they have existed in the past, present, and future, they are all covered by the universal form of the Lord. And the Lord, although is covering this entire universe, he is transcendental. And again, there is a metaphorical way of saying the Lord extends 9 inches beyond. That does not mean Lord is 9 inches bigger than all these living entities. This is another way of telling the same thing, that Lord is transcendental to material creation. So that is, these are the poetic descriptions given about the Lord to tell that Lord is transcendental to all this material creation. So one should not get confused. Thus, Atyatishta Dashangulam Purushukta describes Sabhumim Vishwato Vritva Atyatishta Dashangulam. You see this Subodhini again. Usme Purushukta mein 16th verse is mentioned. So we'll recite this Purush Sukta, ye Bhagavatam ka verse, 16th verse will recite. Sarvam Purusham Evedam Bhutam Bhavyam Bhavachayat Vedam Avritam Vishwam Vitastim Adhitishtati. So this is a similar verse as Purush Sukta verse. Sarvam Purusham Evedam. What is Purush Sukta verse? Purusham Evedagam Sarvam. Bhutam Bhavyam Bhavacha. Yad Bhutam Yaccha Bhavyam. Enedam Avritam Vishwam. Utavritatva Sheshanaha. Vitastim Adhitishtati. Yadannena Tirohati. All these are very similar verses. Again and again, these things will come. Atyatishtat Dashangulam extends beyond this universe by 10 fingers. So that is, very, very important thing to understand, that whatever is mentioned about Garbhodakshay Vishnu, it is mentioned in the Rigveda Purush Sukta also. So this confirms that Garbhodakshay Vishnu is that Purusha, not anyone else. So that is the understanding of this verse. Okay, so then we'll continue the next verse. Prabhupada also writes in the purport, after I think half of the purport, Prabhupada writes, in the Vedic Purush Sukta of the Rig Mantra, this is also confirmed. So Prabhupada is also emphasizing that point. This philosophical truth of simultaneous oneness and difference was propounded by Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Achintya Bhed Abhed. So Prabhupada is emphasizing how Lord enters this universe, creates this universe, still he is aloof from it. Everything rests on the Lord, but Lord is aloof from it. Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says a similar verse. Anyone remembers a similar verse? Everything rests on me. I am in them, but they are not in me. Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram bhrut bhrinnacha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogameshwaram. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani. Then he says nacha matsthani bhutani.
Yeah.
So that's how Lord enters this universe. Lord enters the universe, performs all the creation pastimes, but still he is aloof from this creation. So that is the understanding. Okay, 17th verse. Swadhishnyam pratapan prano
Svadishtim pratapanprano
Bahishcha pratapatyaso
Bahisha pratapatyaso
Evam virajam pratapams
Evam virajam pratapam
Tapatyantar bahi puman.
The sun illuminates both internally and externally by expanding its radiation. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, by expanding his universal form, maintains everything in the creation, both internally and externally. Hare Krishna.
Okay. So basically, this is this 13, 14, 15, and 16 verses. Brahmaji summarizes that there is no end to the description of this universal form. Vitastim adhithishthati. So the Lord is transcendental. So two things, Lord is transcendental and this universal form is also unlimited. He is transcendental, eternally existing beyond, exceeding 9 inches. So the size of the universe is 500 million yojanas. That does not mean the size of the Lord is 500 million yojanas plus 10 fingers. No, it is not like that. It is a figurative way of saying the same thing. Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna says the same thing. So this 16th verse, it is a very, very important verse. There, Brahmaji is saying, Bhutam Bhavyam Bhavachayat. Whatever is there in the future, present, and the past, everything is there in this Virat Rupa. Can anyone find a similar verse from Bhagavad Gita, Virat Rupa section? There is a very similar verse. Ihayakastam jagat krishnam pashyadya characharam. Everything is there. Whatever you want to see in the future, whatever you will see in the future, it is there in this form. So Bhagavad Gita, Virat Rupa, there are two things Krishna had shown to Arjuna. One was Virat Rupa, other was Kala Rupa. So Kala Purusha, Virat Purusha and Kala Purusha, he shows the time factor. Oh Arjuna, see everything in this universe. Whatever you want to see in the world, you see in this form. You will see all these warriors, Bhishma, Drona, they are entering the mouth of this Virat Rupa. That is a future. So that's how Virat Rupa was also shown to Arjuna. But, and here what Brahmaji is telling, you will see everything in this Virat Rupa. Gandharva, Yaksha, Rakshas, Rakshasat, Bhuta, Urugas, Pitas. Virat Rupa, Bhagavad Gita mein kaun sa shlok bolte hain ye? Same, almost same things, but less descriptions. Not so many verses are there in that chapter. Hey kastam jagat krishnam. I'll just read those verses from 11th chapter, and then you will see that all these personalities, they are also mentioned by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita also. So 15th verse says, Brahmanamisham Kamalasanastam Rishimscha Sarvan Uragamscha Divyan. And then in the 21st and 22nd verses, Krishna is saying, Rudra Aditya Vasavo Yecha Sadhya Vishve Ashwinao Marutaschosma Pascha Gandharva Yaksha Surasiddha Sangha Vikshante Tvam Vismita Shaiva Sarave. So similar description, right? So Virat Rupa, which was shown to Krishna, to Arjuna, and the Virat Rupa description given here, it is almost the same. But because Arjuna, he knew only few things, so only few personalities are mentioned, not everything is mentioned. So the details may vary, but the concept is same. I'll give an example. If the devotees are coming by train, returning from yatra, okay, and they are coming in train. So, and in that train there are many other people also, right? Not that only devotees are coming, many other people are also there in the train. So if you ask, so one person went to receive these devotees. So if you ask that devotee who went to receive them, वो train से कौन-कौन आया? तो क्या बोलेंगे? That person will take the names of only those devotees who he knows, right? Ye aaye. He'll not tell the names of all the passengers who came from that train. Because he knows only few of the devotees, so उनका ही नाम बताएंगे. And if you ask others who doesn't know the devotees, they'll mention the names of their own people. So, we don't ask, tell me all the people who came from, S1 to S12 का compartment में जितने लोग हैं सबका नाम बताओ मेरे को. हम लोग क्या पूछते हैं? अरे कौन-कौन devotee आए वो बताइए. So therefore, the descriptions which are given in this Virat Purusha, Virat Rupa, and Bhagavad Gita Virat Rupa, they are similar, but there are lots of descriptions given in Bhagavatam, because Arjuna is only concerned about few people. What will happen to Bhishma? What will happen to Drona? So that description is given in more detail. Okay. Next verse. Next verse will recite. Next verse is done, right? Okay. Next verse we are done. Swadhishnyam pratapan prano bahishya pratapatyasau. So the sun illuminates both internally and externally. Just as, so Vishwanath Chakravarti describes, just as the life air energizes the body inside. The slide show. Swadhishnyam pratapan prano. Just as the life air energizes the body inside and spreads its influence outside as well. Bahishcha pratapatyaso. Similarly, evam virajam pumams. The Lord, Viraja, Lord is Virat Rupa, energizes, pratapans. The Lord energizes this universe inside and outside as well. Antar Bahishcha. So Prabhupada in the purport, he describes how sun gives energy to the entire universe. And Prabhupada writes, the sunshine may expand all over the universe, but the source of sunshine, known as Surya Narayan, is the basis of such radiation. Similarly, Supreme Lord Krishna is the basis of the impersonal Brahma Jyoti. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. So the universal form of the Lord is a secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord. But the primary portion of the Lord is Shyam Sundar, with two hands playing on his eternal flute. Somebody can continue reading from this point.
It is written here, Bhagavad Gita 14 chapter 27 verse.
Yes.
So the universal form of Lord is the secondary imagination of the impersonal form of the Lord, but the primary form of the Lord, Shyam Sundar, with two hands playing on his eternal flute. 75% of the expansive radiations of the Lord is manifested in the spiritual sky, that is Tripada Vibhuti, and 25% his personal radiation comprehends the entire expansion of the material universe. This is also explained and stated in the Bhagavad Gita 10:42. Thus, the 75% of the expansions of his radiation is called his internal energy, whereas the 25% of the expansion is called the external energy of the Lord. The living entity who are resident of the spiritual as well as the material expansions are its marginal energy, that is Tatastha Shakti, and they are at liberty to live in the either of the energies, external or internal. Those who live within the spiritual expansions of the Lord are called liberated soul, whereas the residents of the external expansions are called the conditioned soul. We can just make a estimates of the number of residents of the internal expansion in comparison with the number of residents in the external energy, and may easily conclude that the liberated souls are far more in numbers than the conditioned soul. Hare Krishna.
Hey. So there is a very important understanding. We all know also there is Ek Pada Vibhuti and Tri Pada Vibhuti. Spiritual world is the 3 times. It is said that three times the material world is a spiritual world. But we should understand it is not literal understanding. It is another figurative way of telling that spiritual world is unlimited. 3 times means it is unlimited. So if something is told, oh, it is twice, 2 times, okay, that means it is really big. 3 times, that means scriptures, when somebody they say that 3 times, it is 3 paths, that means it is unlimited. We cannot compare the material universe and the spiritual universe. It is unlimited. Material universe, they are very small in compared to the spiritual sky. So that is what is described here. Okay, so then the next verse is another Purusha Sukta verse, similar verse. Samritasya bhayashyesho Martyam anyam cha atyagat Mahimaisha tato Brahman Purushasya duratyayaha.
Supreme personality of Godhead is the controller of immortality and fearlessness, and he is transcendental to death and the fruitive actions of the material world. O Narad, O Brahman, it is therefore difficult to measure the glories of the Supreme Person.
So now from 18 to 22nd verses, Brahmaji is describing this Ek Pada Vibhuti and Tri Pada Vibhuti. What is this material world and what is this spiritual world? So this is again this very, very similar verse which is there in Purush Sukta, as you can see in this slide. And I think it is there in the Subodhini also. Yes. So, O Brahmana, O Brahman, Saha Amritasya Abhayasya Ishaha. So he is the Lord of Amrita. He is the Lord of spiritual bliss. Abhayasya Ishaha. He is beyond material existence. And because he surpasses material happiness, Yad Martyam Anyam Atyagat. He surpasses material happiness. And that Purushasya Mahima means the strength, the power of that Purusha is Duratyayaha. Mama Maya Duratyaya, Krishna says. That means unlimited, insurmountable. So therefore, Esha Purushasya Mahima Duratyayaha. The Mahima of that Lord is also Duratyaya. So the similar verse is there in Purusha Sukta also. Saha Amritasya Abhayasya Isha. So Purusha Sukta verses Uta Amritatva Sya Ishanaha Yad Annena Atirohati Yad Martyam Anyam Atyagat. Very similar words are also there. What is the verse which matches Mahima Esha Duratyayaha? In the Purush Sukta, दो ही तो लाइन बचे हैं. Etavanasya Mahima Ato Jayamsha Purushai. This Mahima of the Lord is unlimited. So very, very similar verses, So that is the understanding which is given again and again. Now the 19th verse is also there in Purush Sukta. So in the purport, Prabhupada describes the glories of the Lord in the transcendental 75% of the Lord's internal potency is stated in Padma Puran. Those planets which comprise 75% are far, far greater than those planets in the universe composed of the external potency. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that all the universes, they are compared to the bucket full of mustard seeds, small, small seeds. And then after a few lines, Prabhupada describes about the spiritual world. So in this spiritual world, there is all bliss. Sat, Chit and Ananda. The inhabitants of the spiritual world, they are free from birth, old age, disease and death. And Prabhupada describes those liberated souls are engaged incessantly in singing the songs mentioned in Samaveda. Vedai Sanga Pada Kramopanishadai Gayantiyam Samaga. This is a Bhagavatam verse, 12th canto, last chapter, last few verses. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maruta Stunmanti Divyaistavai Vedai Sanga Padai Kramopanishadai Gayantiyam Samaga. Jnanavasthit tadgatena manasa pashyantiyam yogino yasyantam namidu sura suragana devaya tasmai namaha. Prabhupada is quoting this verse. And then Prabhupada focuses more on the Tripad Vibhuti. Tripad, or 75%, known as the internal potency, is understood to be the kingdom of God. Ekpad, or 25%, is material universe. Tripad is transcendental and Ekpad is material. Ekpad is transient, Prabhupada writes, mundane. Tripad is eternal. Pada Vibhuti is transient. So Prabhupada describes some details of this, and then he says, Utamrit Asya Ishanaha. The Supreme Lord is a Lord of immortality. And because he is the Lord of immortality, he can award immortality to his devotees. Mamupetya tu kaunteya punarjanma na vidyate. 8.16. Whoever goes to my abode of eternity, his abode of immortality, shall never return. Okay. And then Prabhupada further writes that in the mundane world, there is always influence of time, things are changing. The changing effects of eternal time are conspicuously absent in the immortal kingdom of God, which should therefore be understood to have no influence of time and therefore no fear whatsoever. So because time is not there, there is no fear. So it is always described that fear creates, time factor creates fear. That is a very, very important understanding. Time factor creates fear in this world. Because with time factor, we lose our strength. Sarvam kala kritam manye bhavatam chayad apriyam sapalo yad vashe loko vayor iva ghanavali. You know where this verse comes? Anyone remembers? Sarvam kala kritam. Everything is done by the time factor. Oh Yudhishthir Maharaj, whatever has happened in your life, it is by the influence of time factors. Just like the clouds are carried away by the wind from one place to another, and clouds are helpless. Similarly, this time factor moves everyone in this world. First Canto, 9th chapter, Bhishma is telling to Yudhishthir Maharaj, Kalosmi lokakshaya krit pravriddho lokan samahartum iha pravrittaha. Krishna is telling to Arjuna, Virat Rupa is telling, I am time factor. So that is how Kala creates fear. But in the kingdom of God, no one has to endeavor to attain happiness, because the spiritual world is all happy. Anandmayo abhyasat. Happiness in spiritual nature always increases in volume with a new phase of appreciation. There is no question of decreasing the bliss. So very beautiful description Prabhupada is writing about the spiritual world. And then in this material world, there is always problem. Okay, next verse, 19th verse. Padeshu sarva bhutani Vamshasthiti pado viduhu Vritam shemam abhayam Trimurdno adhai murdhasu.
The Supreme Personality of Godhead is to be known as the Supreme Reservoir of all material opulences by 1/4 of its energy, in which all the living entities exist. Deathlessness, fearlessness, and freedom from the anxieties of old age and disease exist in the kingdom of God, which is beyond the 3 higher planetary systems and beyond the material coverings.
Adeshu sarva bhutani. So in this world, so in Padeshu means in this 1/4, all these living entities are situated. And those who are intelligent, viduhu, those who are intelligent, they know that the living beings are situated, all these living beings, sarva bhutani, they are situated within this Padeshu, in this 1/4. And whose feet protects all the places. The Lord's feet protects all. Sthiti padaha viduhu. And in the spiritual world, trimurdhnaha. So in material world, what is happening? 1/4, all the living entities are there. In spiritual world, what is happening? Which is trimurdhna? Amritam, Shemam, Abhayam, Trimurdhna. In spiritual world, 3 characteristics: Amrita, Abhaya, and Shema. Eternity, absence of fear, absence of sickness, and absence of fear. That is there in the spiritual world. Adhai, Trimurdhno, Adhai Murdhasu, situated above the 3 gunas. So Purush Sukta also says the same thing. Pado asya vishwa bhutani tripadasyamritam divihi. So pado asya, in this 1/4, pada means 1/4, all the living entities are there in this world. And tripada, the 3/4 is amritam bhuvihi, it is eternal place. So that is described there. So Prabhupada in the purport, he describes in the spiritual world, which is 3/4, the Lord's energy is divided into 3 components: Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini. So this Sandhini potency, Samvit means the potency of knowledge, and Ladini means happiness, and Sandhini means all the Lord's existence is because of this Sandhini. He knows his existence And whatever is there in this universe, everything is known by the Lord. The existence is known because of the Sandhini potency. So this Sandhini potency creates the spiritual world also and creates the material world also. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that in great detail. Okay, so Prabhupada writes, in the material world, such a sense of existence, knowledge and pleasure is meagerly exhibited. So this Samvit, Sandhini, Ladini is manifesting this material world, spiritual world also and material world also. In the spiritual world, Sandhini manifests Goloka. In material world, Sandhini Shakti manifests the universes. In spiritual world, Ladini Shakti gives happiness to the Lord. In material world, Ladini Shakti, creates a perverted, sense of happiness among the living entities when they start identifying with this body. Liberated souls who exist in far greater numerical strength than those souls in the material world can factually experience the potency of Sandhini, Samvit, and Ladini in the matter of deathlessness, fearlessness, and fear from old age and disease. So that is the glory of spiritual world. Next verse. Again, it is a Purush Sukta verse similar to it. Padastrayo bahishchasan
Padastrayo bahishchasan
aprajanam ya ashramah antar trilokyastu paro grihamedho abrihadbratah.
The spiritual world, which consists of 3/4 of the Lord's energy, is situated beyond it, and it is meant for those who will never be reborn. Others who are attached to family life and who do not strictly follow celibacy vows must live within the pre-material world. Hare Krishna.
So beyond this material realm, Bahi, lies the spiritual realm. Padastayoscha asan. So beyond this material realm lies the spiritual realm. And those spiritual worlds, they are inhabited by liberated beings. Aprajanam ya ashramah. Aprajanam means those who are not meant for birth. That means they are liberated. So spiritual world is inhabited by liberated beings only. And in this material world, what happens? Antaha Trilokya. In this material world, made up of 3 gunas, what happens? Who is inhabiting this material world? 2 qualities. Grihamedhi or Brihadvrataha. Those who are attached to family life. And those who do not follow the vow of celibacy. So the very nice, distinction is given. What is spiritual world? What is material world? In spiritual world, it is unlimited. Material world is limited. And in spiritual world, there is no rebirth. In material world, there is rebirth. And who is staying in this material world? Those who are abrihadvrata and those who are grihamedi. In spiritual world, those who are padastrayo bahi, those who are aprajanam, those who are not meant to take birth again, they are liberated beings, they stay in the spiritual world. So this Purush Sukta, again similar verse is used. Tripad urdhva udaitat purushaha and pado asya iha bhavat punaha. Tripad means spiritual world. Who stays? Urdhva udaitat purusha, udaita purusha. Those who are liberated beings, those who are perfect celibates. And pado asya iha abhavat. In this world, those who are not celibate, they stay in this world. So that is described. So Prabhupada in the purport, he describes the climax of the system of Varnashram Dharma is clearly expressed in this particular verse. The highest benefit can be awarded to a human being is to train him to be detached from sex life, because it is the only due to sex indulgence that conditioned life continues birth after birth. Pumsa striya mithuni bhavametat tayor mitha hridaya grantimahu aho ato grihkshetra sutapta vittai janasya mohoyam aham mameti. So that is how this is the beginning of material life. And then Prabhupada writes, if there is no control over sex indulgence, it is an animal civilization. It is not a human civilization. In order to award the highest benefit of the human life, Varnashram system trains the followers to adopt the vow of celibacy. Brahmachari life is for students who are educated to follow the vows of celibacy. Householder who is attached to family life can easily give up the life of sex indulgence if he has been trained in the principles of life of Brahmachari. So Prabhupada elaborates on this principle of Brahmanical culture. And then in the next paragraph again, Prabhupada continues the same thing. And then Prabhupada writes a very, very important line. He says, basically, very interesting line Prabhupada is writing. The last few lines of the second paragraph. This process is the highest degree recommended in Bhagavatam with clear perception of ideal perfection. Although basically there is no difference between the process of Buddhists, Shankarites and Vaishnavites. No difference. For promotion to the highest state of perfection, namely freedom from birth, anxiety and fearfulness, not one of these processes allows the followers to break the vow of celibacy. So, whenever Prabhupada makes a point, he many times makes a point according to the reference, according to the context, So here he is telling there is no difference. That doesn't mean all the philosophies are same, all paths lead to the same goal. We should not make our own philosophy based on this one statement of Prabhupada. There is no difference between all these, so kuch bhi karo chalega. No. The point which Prabhupada is making is all these three paths, they emphasize celibacy. In Shankaracharya, in that sampradaya, you cannot begin practicing unless you give up your family life. After you take sannyas, then only you can start practicing that. So in that sense, Prabhupada writes, it is same. There is no difference. Then Prabhupada writes, the householders and persons who have deliberately broken the vow of celibacy cannot enter into the kingdom of deathlessness. They are abrihad vrata. And then Prabhupada quotes this important pastime of Chota Haridas, how he was severely chastised and punished by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And although what Chota Haridas did was not such a big thing, he just looked at this lady, and Mahaprabhu, he banished him. So, although Mahaprabhu is Mahavadanyaya, he has given mercy to Jagai Madhaya, who has done, all wrong things, raped women, cheated, looted. And then this small mistake done by his follower. And Mahaprabhu was so very strong in his punishment. Why Mahaprabhu did this? Mahaprabhu wants to tell, for outsiders, those who are non-devotees, I'll be very lenient. But after they come to practice of Krishna consciousness, I expect strict standards. In that, there is no compromise. So that is the principle which Mahaprabhu follows. Prabhu lagi dharma karma chhade praktagan bhakta dharma hani prabhu na hoye sahan. For devotees, devotees may say, "Arey chalega, I am serving the Lord. What is the need of following all these rules and rituals?" No, Lord never tolerates that. Bhakta dharma hani prabhu na hoye sahan. Okay, so that's what Prabhupada writes in the purport. Next verse. Sriti vichakrame vishwan
Shruti ne kram
shashana sanane shashana nashane ubhe
Shashana Shane Ubhe
yad vidya cha
Yad vidya cha vidya cha
purushas tu bhayashrayah.
purushasya by his energies the all-pervading personality of God is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nascent and factual knowledge of all situations.
So, somebody may ask, well, it is so very clearly described here that spiritual world is amritam, shemam, abhayam. Then why people don't choose that? What is the problem? Why people they don't choose spiritual world? Why people want to stay in this material world? So in 21st verse, Brahmaji says people they follow two paths. So he calls the living entities as Vishwan. The word used is Sriti Vichakrame Vishwan. So Prabhupada uses this as translates as all pervading personality of Godhead. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, uses this Vishwan and he says, this Vishwan is a Jiva. So Jiva, so we'll see the translation of Chakravarti Thakur, as you can see in this slide also. The Jiva, Vishwan, Yad Avidyacha Vidyacha. The Jiva has two qualifications, ignorance and knowledge. When he is in ignorance, he travels the path of enjoyment. Ubhe Sriti Vichakrame. Two paths. In the path of, when he is qualified by ignorance, then he follows the path of enjoyment. When he is qualified by knowledge, he follows the path of liberation. Shashan Anashane. Shashane Anashane. So Shashane means the path of enjoyment. I want to rule this world. Anashane, the path of liberation. So that's how there are two destinations intended for living entities in this world. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, there are two paths. Naite sriti partha janan yogi muhyati kaschana tasmat sarveshu kaleshu yoga yukto bhavarjuna. Naite sriti. So here also the word used is sriti. Sriti, ubhe sriti vichakrame. There are two paths. There is a path of qualification, the path of vidya, and there is a path of avidya. If somebody follows the path of avidya, the qualification is avidya, path is ashana, path is sashana, and destination is enjoyment, ekpad vibhuti. If somebody has ignorance, he will use the path of enjoyment, he will come in this world again. If he has a qualification of knowledge, he will follow the path of liberation, he'll go to the spiritual world. So that's how it is described. And then Prabhupada, he takes a different meaning for this. And he says, by his energies, the Supreme Lord, all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in controlling, activities of controlling, and in devotional service. So Prabhupada takes a very different understanding. And that is also a very, very wonderful understanding Prabhupada is giving here. So Supreme Lord has two activities. Controls living entities who are in ignorance, who are in avidya. Lord controls them through the material nature. And those who are in knowledge, he gives them devotional service. So therefore, ultimately, Purushas tu bhaya ashraya. Tu bhaya means he is the master in both situations. So that is how it is described. So the word used is yad avidyacha vidyacha. So important, we have to understand this is by vidya one doesn't get liberation. Vidya is the first step in getting liberation. It is the first step in attaining liberation. Because Vidya makes one understand that I am not this body. First of all, that is a basic understanding. That Vidya doesn't make one liberated. There are so many things which are ahead. But the Vidya is the beginning of liberation. Just like if somebody is there in the temple and Radha Giridhari temple, if somebody is there and he wants to go to Mira Road station. So if somebody has to go to Mira Road station, what he'll do, that person will come out of the temple and then he'll take a left turn and then he will take a rickshaw or he will walk. So if somebody says, मैं मंदिर से ही ऐसा लेफ्ट टर्न अंदर ही लेता हूँ, उधर से ही घुसता हूँ ना, no, it will not be possible, right? सबसे पहले क्या करना पड़ेगा? You have to take a straight way, go out of the temple. Then somebody may say, अरे इधर कहाँ जा रहा है? Temple तो इधर है. So first thing is go straight and walk out of the temple and then take a left, right? So the path, the straight path does not lead to station, but that is the beginning of reaching the station. Avidya doesn't take one to liberation. That is the beginning of liberation. So that is the understanding. Okay, so Prabhupada describes in the purport the word Vishwan. Somebody can read this? Vishwan.
Prabhuji, the word vision is significant in this verse, correct?
Yeah.
From the beginning. One who travels perfectly in every field of activities is called the Purusha or Kshetragya. These two terms, Kshetragya and Purusha, are equally applicable to both the individual self and supreme self, the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita 13.3, the matter is explained as follows. Kshetragya chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetresu bharatah kshetragyor janam jnanam yet taj jnanam matam mama. Kshetra means the place, and one who knows the place is called the Kshetragya. The individual self known about his limited field of activities, but the supreme self, the Lord, knows about the unlimited field of activities. The individual soul knows about his own thinking, feelings, and willing activities, but the super soul or the Paramatma, the supreme controller, being present everywhere, knows everyone thinking, feelings, and willing activities. And as such, the individual living entity is the minute master of his personal affairs, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of everything affairs, past, present, and future.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you. So that's how Prabhupada is describing the difference between the Jiva and the Supreme Lord, the Vishwan. The Vishwan is described as Supreme Lord by Srila Prabhupada, and the Vishwan is described as the living entity by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So Prabhupada is giving the understanding of who is a Vishwan, who is a Supreme Lord, who is a Jiva. Jiva is aware of his own body. Supreme Lord is aware of all the body. Kshetragyam chapi mam vidhi. And then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada describes a little more about this Ekpad and Tripad. So those who are forgetful of their own identity, they stay in this Ekpad. And those who realize that I am not this body, I am soul, they go to the spiritual world. And that is the beginning. And then they establish relationship with the God, Krishna. Then Prabhupada writes, there are different stages of avidya. Yes, now Prabhupada is elaborating on this word avidya. What are the different stages of avidya? Dharma, artha, and moksha. It is also avidya. Very, very important. Ishopanishad describes vidyam chayas yastat ubhayam vedo bhayam saha. One should know vidya and avidya also. So what is the vidya and avidya there? Anyone would like to tell me what is the Vidya and Avidya mentioned in Ishopanishad? There are 3 verses, 9, 10, 11, which describe Vidya and Avidya. You know. So,
Apara knowledge is Vidya and para knowledge is Vidya.
okay. So then, in this verse, it is said, Vidya, one should know Vidya also and Avidya also. One should know the material knowledge also and spiritual knowledge also. Material knowledge means the knowledge to live in this world. And spiritual knowledge means knowledge to go out of this world. That is one understanding of Vidya and Avidya. Another understanding was Avidya means when people, they do sinful activities in this world. That is Avidya. And those who do good activities, that is Vidya. So different understandings of Vidya and Avidya are given in these 3 verses of Ishopanishad, 9, 10, 11. So here Prabhupada is mentioning what is Avidya. The dharmic activities are also Avidya. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. There Moksha is also Avidya. Tar Madhya Moksha Vancha Kaitava Pradhan. The highest type of cheating is Moksha Vancha. So Prabhupada writes, the idea of moksha held by the monist in the matter of oneness is also the last stage of materialism. Prabhupada writes in many places this. It is the last snare of Maya. This impersonalism, Mayavad, to consider oneself one with the God, it is the last snare of Maya. When living entity gets frustrated with everything in this world, then he says, hey, sansar ka sab phaltu hai, I want to become God. That is the last snare of Maya. The knowledge of the qualitative oneness of the self and the super self is the partial knowledge and ignorance also, because there is no difference, there is no knowledge of quantitative difference. If somebody says, I am one with the Lord, it is knowledge also and it is ignorance also. Somebody says it is ignorance. How it is ignorance? Because you are one with the Lord only in quality, not in quantity. So there is quantitative difference that is not there. That knowledge is not there with you. Therefore, it is ignorance. Okay, you have the knowledge that I am one with the Lord, but that is not the complete knowledge. There is ignorance also in this. That's what Prabhupada is writing there. Next paragraph, Prabhupada writes, in the field of Nishayans, activities are directed toward lording it over the creation. In the material world, therefore, everyone is engaged in acquiring material opulence. Therefore, there is always clash and frustration, which are the symptoms of Nishayans. So Prabhupada is focusing on this word, avidya. Okay, next verse. Yasmadandam virad jagye Indriya gunatmakaha Adhyamagad Vishwam Gobhi Suryaiva Tapan
From that personality of the Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities, and senses are generated, yet he is aloof from such material manifestations like sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. Right.
So now he is giving an example of how the Supreme Lord is aloof from the creation. Just like the sun, although the sun is creating so many different manifestations of clouds and evaporates water, but sun remains aloof of it. Similarly, Yasmad, from this Lord, the universe was born. Andam Virad Jagye. Jagye means appeared. This Virad Andam, the gigantic egg-like universe, appeared. The Lord possesses Bhut, Indriya Guna Atmakaha. The Lord possesses elements, senses, and gunas. That's how, the elements are created, na? The process of creation, material creation, karyas, karan srishti. So from the Lord's glance, ultimately, what all is created? So first of all, the material modes, guna and kala is impregnated along with jiva, kala, karma, swabhav. And then the elements are created, the senses are created. And then the Lord entered the universe, Atyagad. After entering this Dravya means he entered this, Mahatattva. And that Mahatattva led to creation of this universe. So after entering this universe, Atyagad Vishwam, he surpassed that material universe. That means he is not affected by this material creation. And he remained in the spiritual world. So, another metaphorical way of telling that Lord is unaffected. Lord enters the universe, but he is unaffected, just like the sun. Sun, although illuminates everything, but he is also there in this planet, in his planet. Okay. Next verse will go. Yadasya nabhayan Yadasya nabhyan nalinat
Yadasya nabhyan nalinat
ahamasam mahatmanaha
ahamasam mahatmana
navidam yagya sambharan
navitam yagya sambharan
purusha vayavanrite.
purusha vayana vanvrite.
When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord, Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredient for sacrificial performances except the bodily limb of a great personality of Godhead. Hare Krishna.
So now this is a very interesting and important thing which is happening here. So what Brahmaji is telling there in this section from 23 to 230, he is saying something very, very important. He says, so far I am telling you my Shabda Praman, but now I will tell you Pratyaksha Praman also. So far I am telling you all these things which I know, okay, Lord creates all this universe. He says, it is not theory for me. It is practical observation I have seen by my own eyes. In our spiritual knowledge, there are three ways to get knowledge in this world. What are the three ways to get knowledge?
Pratyaksha praman, anuman praman, and shabda praman.
Which is the best of it?
Shabda.
Shabda. In the spiritual world, we all know spiritual knowledge means, first of all, we have to hear. So till now, Brahmaji explained to Narada by quoting Shabda, scriptures, that Supreme Lord is material and efficient cause of the universe. What are the various names given for the material and efficient cause? Sanskrit mein kya naam hai?
Upadan and nimitta karan.
Upadan and nimitta karan. Now, Brahmaji says, now I will give you Pratyaksha Praman. How he saw that Lord is the material cause actually. Now, this is a very important section because we have heard so far that Shabda is the best, Shabda is the highest. Yes. But ultimately, we all know, till the time we see something with our own eyes, our faith doesn't grow, right? All our spiritual practices should be ultimately for this Pratyaksha Praman. When we see things happening in front of our eyes, that makes spiritual knowledge real. All this Shabda we are hearing, it is ultimately for one purpose, to get realization of Pratyaksha. That is the ultimate thing. all our Shabda should ultimately help us realize in Pratyaksha. That will give faith in Shabda itself. Otherwise, Shabda will remain theoretical only. Suna hai, khali pata nahi, hota hai ki nahi, Bhagavad Dham jayenge ki nahi, malum nahi, suna hai khali, you know. But when we really experience and see, that gives strength, that gives faith, you know. So now what Brahma is saying there that is, for me, it is not just Shabda, it is Pratyaksha for me. You know, so for most of us, our scriptural knowledge is Shabda. But those who are realized, what is 9th chapter Bhagavad Gita, first verse? Second verse, sorry.
Rajavidya Rajaguhyam.
Aage?
Pavitram uttamam. Pratyakshagamam dharmam susukham kartamavyam.
It is Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. We have to, it can be realized directly with your senses, with our senses. It is not just a theory. Pratyaksha avagamam dharmyam. So all our spiritual practice should be ultimately to give us the knowledge of Pratyaksha, experience of Pratyaksha, because ultimately that gives faith. You know, kitna bhi sun lijiye, wo sun ke, that faith becomes really strong when we see things happening in front of us. When we see people leaving their body in such a wonderful consciousness, that increases our faith. You know, we heard in the first canto, 9th chapter, when Bhishma is departing, all the big sages of the universe, they came, right? You know, Vashishta, Narada, Atri, Chavana, Bhrigu, Bhardwaj, they are all liberated beings. Already, still they are coming. Why? Have this Pratyaksha. They want to experience how Parikshit is in such a wonderful consciousness. Because Pratyaksha makes the faith strong. So therefore, Brahma, he is telling Narad Muni, Are, for me it is not just Shabda. I have personally seen that I needed ingredients to make this universe. You know from where I got the ingredients? I got the ingredients from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. It was not a theory for me. It is a practical experience, you know. Yada asya na bhayan nalinad. You know, he says, Yada, when aham asam, when I appeared, asya mahatmana na bhayan nabhyan nalinad. When I appeared from the lotus navel, from the lotus which appeared from the navel of the Lord, na vidam, I could not see anything. I wanted to do yajna, but yajna ke liye ingredient kahan se aayega? I could not see any ingredient for sacrifice. What I saw, Purusha avayavan rite. I could only see the limbs of the Lord. You know, so that is how he got the vision, actual vision, that whole universe is but a part of the Lord. For us, it may be a theory. It's like, you know, if a small ant is, you know, just moving on our, you know, shirt. For an ant, the shirt is what? It is just a strand, you know, various strands, just like a saffron kurta. It is just like a saffron strands. Ant cannot see the whole picture. Ant cannot see, oh, this strand is the part of the shirt, of the kurta. But when the ant is raised above, then the ant can have a whole view of, oh, this strand, it was a part of this whole kurta. It was a part of a whole, you know, garment, you know. So Brahmaji, he actually saw, he zoomed out and he could see that jo bhi main le raha hu, these are all coming from the ingredients of the, from the parts of the body on the Lord. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, if the Lord is everything, then how can I serve him with a method to attaining him, since there is no difference between the material article of worship, and even the worshipper. Basically he's saying, अरे सब कुछ तो एक ही है, material भी उससे ही आ रहा है, मैं भी उनसे आया हूं, तो मतलब how can I serve him? So he says, yes, this is true, but it is necessary to worship him. Of course, everything is coming from him only, but it is necessary to worship him. Because actually there is nothing except him in this universe, That is what is Chatushloki Bhagavatam, na? What is the first verse of Chatushloki Bhagavatam?
Aham sarvasya prabho matta
नहीं, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita नहीं.
Oh, sorry, Hare Krishna.
Aham evasam evagre नान्यद यद असत परम तस्मात् पश्चाद हम यदेतच्च यो अवशिष्येत स्वस्म्यहम. It will come in the next chapter. Another very technical verse. तो 4 श्लोकों में पूरा ऐसा very, very technical explanation is there in that verse. So Krishna is saying to Brahmaji, Aham eva sam eva agre. In the beginning I was existing, in the middle I was there, I am there, in the end I will be there. So in fact, Lord is everything, but still it is necessary to worship him. And how will one perform worship? Ingredient bhi unse hi lena hai. Tera tujhko arpan kya lage mera. That is the only thing, So that's how everything is coming from the Lord. So we have to use everything in service of the Lord itself. So what Brahmaji did, we are also doing the same thing. We are also collecting various ingredients from the body of the Lord only. All these trees, all these, mines, what are they? They are the body of Virat Rupa, body of the Lord. And which is ultimately coming from the Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. Only the difference is we don't have the vision. Brahmaji got the vision. Okay, so that is how it happens. So Prabhupada writes about the detail of the creation, how Lord Brahma appeared from the body, from the navel of the Lord. He could not see anything. He only saw the various ingredients. He only saw the body of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then Prabhupada writes, for sacrificial performances, many ingredients were in need, especially animals. Thus, animal sacrifice is never meant for killing the animal, but for achieving the successful result of the sacrifice. So Prabhupada, whenever required, he gives some practical understandings. Oh, why animal killing is there in the sacrifice? What was the understanding? Why it should not be done now? And then in the next paragraph, Prabhupada, he mentions the commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The impersonalists argue that there is no need in worshipping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. सब कुछ तो भगवान ही है ना, तो भगवान की पूजा करने की क्या जरूरत है? So Prabhupada answers this. Personalist worships the Lord out of a great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth. Yet, Mother Earth is worshipped by the sensible devotee with ingredients born from the earth. Similarly, Ganga water is offered to Ganga. Therefore, the worship of the Lord is also performed by the ingredients which are coming from the body of the Lord itself. That is just a way to show our gratitude. But a foolish materialist, they are puffed up. They don't understand this. Okay, next verse. Do we have test today, right? Oh, okay. So we'll stop here. Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Srimad Bhagvatam ki jai.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dhanvat Pranam.
Hare Krishna. Krishna Prabhu.
Krishna Pranam. Vancha Prabhu Kripasindhu.